Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lorraine, Alternative Homesteading. I'm going to do another Q&A, but before I do, please hit the thumbs up. Now, this is a question on Quora that I responded to 2 years ago. I mean, right now, if I were to respond to it, I would have added so much more. But I'm going to read this only because I received a response today that I thought was really interesting. Why do people get gang stalked, and why would they do such a thing? So my response 2 years ago was, well, first of all, it's revenge for hire. They rot food because they're rotten. They want you to react to study your emotions because they do not feel their own. Carmageddon's on its way every day. They're all complicit. The real enemy of the state, hint, 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 corrupt officials and sheeple people. Okay, so let's get back to the main, my main little screen here. Revenge for hire, vigilante, vendetta, vindictive. Why do people get gang stalked, and why would they do such a thing? People are stalked, also known as gang stalked, for a variety of reasons. Please view how it's done, which is pinned to my profile. That's right here on Quora. There are a lot of envious, jealous psychopaths, immature losers out there that are infinitely jealous of anyone who threatens their false sense of self. We live in a society of malignant narcissists who derive sadistic pleasure by inflicting pain upon others. They also enjoy stealing from others and look at the goodness in others as a weakness to exploit. These criminal stalkers are bullies on steroids. They're paid for hire murderers, menacing lunatics. Envy, jealousy, greed, and sadism are some of the reasons. Many of these criminals are satanists and or addicts. So now I received a comment. And this individual is from Spain. He says, "Hello, I'm from Spain. I have been investigating organized harassment for more than a decade, and I can tell you that it is only a system of perpetuation in power of the same, using technological means mainly. Everything else is secondary. By secondary, I mean that the tactics are the same. The only thing that changes is the history. In Spain, this organized harassment is done by socialist, gay, lesbians. They have enormous power. Besides, Spain is a poor country and sold out to science. They put you on a list and experiment on you." So now, along this thread, I posted a comment, again, 2 years ago. And this was an article, FBI DHS Fusion Center murders. It's a notice to pertinent authorities. And this was written by Karen M. Stewart, who has disappeared. She's pretty much disappeared from the community. Nobody knows where she is or what she's doing. However, one astute person in the community emailed me and said that he discovered that her father passed away and that she was considered to be an existing relative. So, fortunately, she's not unalived. So anyway, this was written back in 2022. Notice to Pertinent Authorities by Karen M. Stewart, ex-NSA analyst, or I should say retired. "Dear Sirs, I'm notifying you of an ongoing, multifaceted crime spree in your jurisdiction, which you are not acknowledging, not responding to, not following your oath to address, not following what you know to be your basic duties in regard to protecting the civil, human, and constitutional rights of the civilians in your area and under your jurisdiction." I think we can all print this out and send it to our local sheriff. What do you think, guys? "I recommend you consult your federal state attorney as well. You have failed to make yourselves aware of vicious, inhumane, highly organized crimes being systematically committed against innocent victims, despite many people attempting to alert you, albeit through purposely skewed system designed to cover up this problem while discrediting the victims. You may or may not be aware of these crimes due to a small-minded subordinates ignorantly dismissing the crimes because they're unaware such crimes exist, therefore cannot imagine such sophisticated crimes, or you or others have ordered them to ignore such crimes because you yourselves cannot be bothered or imagine this is happening, or you have a vested interest in covering up these widespread organized crimes. Nonetheless, with this notification, you are now liable for willingly and negligently ignoring these heinous crimes while committing such crimes yourself as conspiring to deny citizens their rights and equal protection under the law, not to mention dereliction of duty. I, and thousands across the country, am a victim of the present-day watch list scam perpetrated by rogue elements of the federal government, DHS, FBI fusion centers, and certain contractors and foreign quote-unquote partners in their quest to defraud the federal and state governments out of billions of dollars yearly in perpetuity on a war on terror that does not exist, but is criminally based on the secret, false vilification of unsuspecting innocent citizens to declare them quote-unquote threats that they're not, and use them as a terrorist scapegoat and cash cows for the watch list scam. Did you know they have never detected, much less stopped, a real terrorist plot? So why fund them? This scam entails FBI fusion centers spreading false information, which they have fabricated themselves, against the victim as authoritative to other equal or lesser authorities and unauthorized civilians like fusion center mercenaries, victims' neighbors, victims' employers, area shopkeepers, area professionals, to sabotage every aspect of the victims' lives as possible and secretly isolate them from society. And I'm going to add, and real estate mobbing, to destroy their property so they can buy it on the cheap. Just like they did at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, where a copper bought my gorgeous home for pennies. That's right. And he only had to pay 2% interest on his mortgage because coppers get special treatment. Anyway, the genius of the scam is the fusion center's share notice to pertinent authorities. Karen M. Stewart, NSA intelligence analyst, retired May 2022. The filthy, lucrative pyramid scheme, which takes away incentive for local authorities to question, acknowledge, or much less actually investigate these crimes. Local authorities take kickbacks, and local criminals shift their efforts to largely target fusion center victims, making it appear that law enforcement is doing a better job. A lot of money is to be made denying certain people their rights and pretending they're terrorists. Well, all you losers out there, all you criminals out there, well, guess what? You're all going to be exposed. All your names. You're going to be exposed. That's right. Here in remote rural Kentucky, all the criminals here that are involved in harassing me will be exposed. And the ones that I don't know personally, they'll also be exposed. And then it'll have to be investigated. Local authorities take kickbacks, and local criminals shift their efforts to largely target fusion center victims. This is a form of human trafficking. Ironically, those civilians eager to harass, torture, and murder innocent victims for money, or of course the dregs of society, whether actual drug addicts, career criminals, prostitutes, unskilled, unemployable, unintelligent, never-do-wells, who only ever burden society, and those who hold jobs and actually contribute somewhat to society, but who are greedy, sociopathic bullies at heart, who jump at a chance to abuse others if paid and illegally and falsely are promised immunity, quote unquote. Well, they don't get immunity. they've been prosecuted, men and women, boys and girls. They have been prosecuted. A couple of them in prison right now. There needs to be a state fusion center accountability task force. First, to shut down fusion center domestic terrorism units. Shut them down until you complete your audit. You likely need to put these real domestic terrorists in jail so they're not killed as witnesses to criminal activity implicating even further higher-ups. Then, competent, serious, non-complicit state authorities need to examine who exactly the FBI fusion centers in your state are targeting and why, and demand to see the real evidence. When the fusion center pleads immunity from scrutiny due to quote-unquote national security concerns, know that President Obama signed an executive order stating that criminal activity cannot be classified merely to hide its criminality. The activity must be proven to be legitimate to retain its classification. One way is to demand your investigators get read on to the highest classification in order to call their bluff. You must also interview all the victims of this never-ending surveillance harassment. See what types of crimes have been committed against them, by whom, civilian proxies, which will ultimately lead to the fusion centers. For how long? How often? Then independently look for any signs of real proof against them. When little to no proof is found to even validate years of surveillance, meaning daily harassment to provoke, demand to see the criteria among which the victim's surveillance harassment was continually renewed by the FISA court in your area, and you will find the criteria, the false, feeble, non-existent. You know, like with the Manalapan police and the blondie next door at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner. You remember the testimony that I just gave to Richard Moore, USA GSA, where the blondie perp next door with her screaming kid walks out on the driveway, harasses me, then asks me, "Is there anything else you'd like to say before I call the police?" And when the police arrive, they do not include any of my evidence or testimony into the police report, the incident report. Instead, they label me with disorderly conduct and a terror threat, likely to renew their grounds. So we're going to call out the criminals at the Manalapan Police Department. And then my former neighbor at 54 Sutton Drive. Yeah, if you're still living there. I still got your letter. Your harassment letter. Yeah, I do. It's proof, even though it was stolen from my desk. I still have it. The court is part of the scam. You will also not likely be given a complete list of victims, so you'll have to start a hotline to preliminarily interview victims of fusion centers. That what the fusion centers did not want you to know about. So, fusion centers also have people on a list that is secret. That the ones that they don't want you to know about. It's sort of like, you know, when I filed all those incident reports in Manalapan, none of them made it to the police blotter. And when I FOIA request copies of the police blotter and gave them the numbers of the incident reports in a list, the response that I receive is non-available. Audit the fusion center itself, but also each employee for the unexplained wealth and the unexplained gifts. What about their salaries? What about their benefits? Who is paying these fusion center operatives? Know that there should also be lists of FBI informants. They're those mercenary thugs. That they're paid in third-party gift cards, maybe arranged through Lockheed Martin or other fusion center partners, like cryptocurrency accounts, services like getting a roof repair, products like a new washer or dryer, season sport tickets, vacations, or even illicit drugs for addicts, or early parole for a family member, or drop charges for previous crimes. And what about, paid off mortgages? Yeah, all that to pay criminals on patrol. This is used like a dating app. Oh, wait, I skipped a paragraph. Let me back up. You will want to check an app given to various communities and serviced by the GitHub platform, at least in certain areas, if not nationally, on which passive stalkers can report sighting a target. $100 per sighting put on their bank account. That's why they stalk you and want to take photos. They're getting a little bit of money. Well, okay, I'm going to drag your asses to court and I want my gate paid for. I'm getting it paid for. Either way, it's going to be paid for by you. Oh, then they get alerts, the stalker's phone alerts, and he's taken to a list of targets to scroll through. You can visually identify who's in his area and then confirm the identity, place, and time for $100 reward. Validated. This is validated by a talkative stalker. A pimp, by the way. Know that the primary purpose of this scam is to bilk federal and state for billions of dollars from taxpayer money. But there are also lucrative kickbacks from the military-industrial complex, MIC, to use and test covert weapons of war on the innocent victims. The directed energy weapons used on our diplomats are similar to, at times, exactly like those used on fusion center targets in their own homes. The effects are horrific, especially since triangulation is a favorite technique, tripling the strength of the weapons as well as the pain and damage from them. There are injuries and deaths due to these attacks, but police are bullied, bribed into looking the other way. Often, they're encouraged to write the victims off as delusional, even in the face of second and third degree burns, in order to hide their crimes. I had a sheriff deputy show me a collection of about 12 to 20 folders he was ordered to keep in his car trunk of people the Fusion Center ordered law enforcement to not help when he was a duty officer for the day. Those folders were passed to each change in the daily duty officer to tell them who to deny equal protection to under the law. He chanced losing his job, or worse, to show me. I can tell you that my investigation in Florida showed that the Naval Security Group, Silent Warriors in Pensacola, Florida, was fully involved in illegal targeting, stalking, photo taking, and delivery of contraband directed energy weapons to the fusion centers in the capital, to be passed out to civilians, to commit acts of war and other civilians, not only to test the weapons, but to train up on covert, unconstitutional army of citizen assassins to eradicate people seen as enemies to our new totalitarian state, such as patriots, Christians, and constitutionalists. And just for the record, approximately 72% of people on the list are women. Women. Over 40. Other entities that give FBI fusion centers kickbacks do testing on war-grade gases and poisons, with doctors and laboratories told to refuse treatment or to falsify results, like exactly what's being done to my eyes right now. War-grade gases. You know, they stuck a stink bomb in my kitchen. I wonder if that had something to do with the increased pain and weepiness of my eyes that were starting to get better. Transhumanists and other medical experiments are also contracted and funded. They require illegal, opportunistic access to the intended victim as they sleep in their own beds, knocked out, or merely because they needed or wanted a medical procedure that Fusion Center medical partners deemed useful, to implanting technology without their consent or liable. The twisted thought process of these scammers and human traffickers is that if you secretly declare anyone to be a threat or a terrorist, disallow them the right to know of the accusation, disallow them to challenge your proof, if they suspect, then you deny them all human, civil, and constitutional rights. They then can be killed anyway, in any way, either blown up by a military drone overseas, or thousands of innocent civilians inside the USA that can be just tortured to death on a non-consensual human test specimens list with no recourse at all. Now you know. Will the silent Holocaust continue on your watch? Will you go down in history as a coward, a monster, an enabler, or psychopaths? Do you care about the world your children and grandchildren will grow up in? Will all be lost on your watch? The Constitution specializes that all rights not specifically given to the federal government are the purview of the states. Your duty is to protect your constituents from criminals inside as well as outside government. You have a right to audit, shut down, persecute degenerates committing harassment crimes and sedition under the color of law. So then she goes on to write the pertinent laws being broken. There are several here. One is 18 U.S. Code Section 2441. It prohibits the federal government and agents thereof from committing acts of war upon unarmed, non-combatant civilians. 18 U.S.C. Section 1961 RICO. Organized Crime Control Act of 1980. H.R. 1544 Domestic Insurgency Act of 1995. 18 U.S. Code Section 241, conspiracy to deprive constitutional rights, and that there's a penalty up to and including unaliving. 18 U.S. Code Section 242, deprivation of constitutional rights under the color of law. 18 U.S. Code Section 1983, civil action for deprivation of rights. 18 U.S. Code Section 1985, conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. 18 U.S. Code Section 1509, impeding due exercises of rights by attempting to prevent, impede, and interfere with the same. 18 U.S. Code Section 1510, obstructing a criminal investigation, conflict of interest roles in the government authorities. Let me scroll up a little bit here. (18 U.S. Code Section 1512), engaging in misleading conduct. That's for the authorities. 18 U.S. Code Section 1905, disclosure of information generally. Authorities. 18 U.S. Code Section 2384, seditious conspiracy. 18 U.S. Code Section 2389, recruiting for service against the United States. 10 U.S. Code Section 950T, forbids attacking non-combatant citizens with weapons of war, directed energy weapons and devices in civilians' hands or used on civilians by anyone are considered contraband because they're defined as weapons of war, weapons of mass destruction. 18 U.S. Code Section 2381, treason. 18 U.S. Code Section 2382, misprison of treason, knowing about treason but doing nothing. 18 U.S. Code Section 2340, conspiracy to commit torture. 18 U.S. Code Section 1111, conspiracy to commit unaliving. 18 U.S. Code Section 1117 is MURDER. Then there's EO Section 1233, the DOD Directive Section 3321.1, and National Security Directive 130. The United States military and intelligence communities are forbidden by law from targeting U.S. citizens with psyops within U.S. borders. The U.S. borders... Wait, I just missed something. Gang stalking, massive slander and libel campaigns, obsessive obstruction of daily activities, and the acquisition of life necessities, i.e. complete neutralization. EO 13606. All who conduct or conspire to facilitate prohibited activities using sophisticated electronic technology to harm communications equipment, communications networks, or human beings are axis of evil, rogue state actors or sympathizers, or terrorist infiltrators working against the American people and public at large. By the definition in Section 7 to include transmission and display, as well as those using transmission and display, as well as those using information and communications technology to commit serious and grave human rights violations and abuses by the counterfeit access device. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees probable cause is needed for a warrant for search and seizure. Surveillance is considered to be a search, and we are under surveillance 24/7. The Eighth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution: no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, not to be deprived of life, liberty, or notice to pertinent authorities. This is written by K.M. Stewart, NSA intelligence analyst, retired May 2022. Property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Sixth Amendment guarantees a public accusation of a crime and a speedy trial. You have a right to know if you've been accused of something and what it is and who accuses you. The Eighth Amendment of the Constitution prohibits cruel and unusual punishment for people, even convicted of a crime. Needless to say, no punishment is appropriate before you're convicted of a crime. Then there are the Supreme Court decisions. Marbury versus Madison. No unconstitutional law is valid. Norton versus Shelby County. 118 U.S. 425, 1886 states, an unconstitutional act is not a law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. It is in legal contemplation and inoperative as though it had never been passed. For example, following an unconstitutional law affords you no protection from liability and prosecution. So that's the end here, folks. I look forward to your questions and comments on this article. First, we started with a Quora Q&A, and that was, the question was, why do people get gang stalked, and why would they do such a thing? I responded 2 years ago. I received another response recently, and then Karen Stewart wrote this article, FBI DHS Fusion Center Murderers, Notice to Pertinent Authorities, by Karen M. Stewart, ex-USA analyst, and it was printed in Dr. Eric Hallstrom's website, which is entitled Gang Stalking, Mind Control, and Cults. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow, get the message out there, fights the algorithms and stuff like that. So anyway, once again, sometimes it's revenge for hire. They're carrying around secret folders on you. You can't even FOIA request those folders. Vigilante stalking, it's a vendetta, vindictive. And yeah, you know, the bum babes are involved. A lot of women go after other women. They're jealous. They're envious and jealous. Many of these women that are targeting other women, they're just plain Janes. They have no personalities. They've never accomplished what you or I have, and they're very envious and jealous. And they want to destroy other females, which is really disgusting. Many of them have severe personality disorders, addictions, and many of them are covert sexual deviants and lesbians. But meanwhile, on the surface, they're telling everybody that they're straight. But they're really not. Okay, they're really not. They actually hate women. Which is why they like to destroy the physical appearance of the attractive women in the targeting community. They rot food because they're rotten. It's a projection, right? They want you to react, to study your emotions because they do not feel their own. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, and I will talk to you in the next video.